I want to take Akim to Aga Khan Hospital for his clinic. Then she says, Missina, I believe she didn't have. She said she didn't have. And we left it at that. Then she calls me after a few minutes and asks me, by the way, must you take him to Aga Khan? And I say, yeah. I mean, he was born in Aga Khan. We've been taking him to Aga Khan. So what will stop us now from taking him to clinic in Aga Khan? Then she says, listen, I think she must have seen this stupid young girl. Used to work at Kangundo, or she had just come from Kangundo then, or I can't quite remember, but she had experience with a public hospital, so she knows. I think it must have been the one for 5 months. And I go like, oh my God, I'm looking at my son and thinking, he won't be okay if he goes to the public hospital. Evelyn tells me, no, check and go to that hospital and have him get the job. So to cut the long story short, I call one of my friends and she tells me there's a hospital called Karai that is a few miles from where I won't be charged, but I will go with 10 bob so that Kalpo can be put in the chupa. I had 200 shillings on me that day. So you know what we did? I had a house help called Cherono then. So I told Cherono, just get ready, let's go to Karai hospital. And she's looking at me and wondering what has happened. This time you're not taking the child. But anyway, I'm word in my heart, this is what I'm going to do. So we got into a matatu there. It charges 20 bob to go, both of us, 20, that's 40 bob. And another 40 bob to come back, and the 10 bob. We had carried our kachupa. Na tukapewa dawa. Na tukarudi vizuri. Why am I telling you this story? It's because I think we are looking, rejoice in the Lord, all these things to us. But most often, its emphasis is to rejoice in suffering as well. Joy in the Christian faith is a major theme in the Pauline epistles. All the Pauline epistles, you'll find a lot of emphasis on the joy of the Lord for a Christian. And Paul uses the word rejoice over 40 times. He is saying much more than just be joyful in those things. He is saying much more than rejoice in what you see right now. Probably for you, you're looking at your business and saying, I'm doing turnovers of 156 million per month. I'm doing, and we can actually look at the things that we are seeing right now and forget there is future. Don't think this is what Paul is talking about when he tells us to rejoice. He's talking about something deeper, something heavier. We know that because Paul's situation, as Paul is saying much more than be joyful, we actually can relate with his situation, because when he was writing this letter, it's not like he was sitting by the seashore. He was not sitting somewhere in Diani reading a book and telling you rejoice in the Lord always. We well know that he was in prison. He was in prison. But he can afford to tell us rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. And he is encouraging us and telling us, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer, petition, with thanksgiving, presents your requests to God. And he goes ahead to say, and the peace of God that surpasses all. The daughter passed on in Diani, in Coast, Diani. And when this guy was told that the daughter, and the gentleman told them, so God, that things are looking humongous, is because it is the peace of God. Yeah? His earthly situation could hardly be worse. And yet, his joy overflows more in this letter than any other, where he's encouraging you and me. You can imagine what Paul was going through at this moment. Remember his story again with Silas, where they have met this girl who was performing miracles, or I don't know what she was doing, and they have cast out the demon in her. They must not have been miracles, it's something else. She was using other powers. And they have cast out the demon in her. And the people who are using this girl have come and actually put out of that story. I never used to make sense then. And of course, there's an auntie of mine who was called Sila. Because regardless of the situation around him, yet will I praise him. What are you going through this morning, brothers and sisters? What is your situation like? Are you like Paul, who will lift up a praise, Paul and Silas, and the prison doors will open and everything else will pause because Jehovah has been. 4 or 5 years ago, we had a neighbor. My husband doesn't talk loud often, but for sure one day he told me, "Enyewe, this is a neighbor from hell." And I thought, indeed, you have actually nailed it, because we had a bad neighbor. Evelyn and Alex know this guy. He was a bad neighbor. Beatrice knows this guy. Yani, all my family knew this guy. My mom knew this guy. So that my mom would come from Meru and we would hold our hands in the compound and really pray for our neighbor. It's a compound with just 2 houses where we lived then, or where we still live. And this guy in the other house would not want to see us progress in any way. Much older than us, come from. Now, the worst happened when he saw us with a car for the first time. In fact, I was telling my husband, this guy looks like the kind who will deflate our tires in the night. You know, he was that bad. But let me tell you, this story humbles me up to today to see how God confuses the camp of the enemy. My mom would come and I would cry and we would pray. We'd stand in the compound and say, "Shindwe!" We would walk and declare the goodness of God in that compound. Why? Because we have prayed. Really, for us to have been in that compound, God led us. It's no man who did it for us. It was the workings of